The excuse used to keep me out of public space is that मुझे कुछ हो जाएगा. And the threat is there and it's a real threat, but if we are to look at the statistics of violence, even in my own life, most of my experience of sexual assault has been in private spaces by somebody I knew and who was trusted. Girl Dhabas is a collective of women and non-binary folks who occupy public spaces in unconventional ways. And we believe in sharing and reimagining our experiences in public spaces through storytelling. It wasn't really like Girl Dhabas whole night, right? So I was going around the city, and then there were very few women here who I was actually still friends with, who I consider close. So Natasha was one, Nadia was one, and Amna. And हम लोग आपस में भी ढाबों पे हम निकलना शुरू किया साथ, you know, के साथ चलते हैं, let's go together, and not to like chai wala, but to like an actual ordinary space in the city where you're part of the landscape. Although you're not really used to, you always stand out, right? And we were having these conversations because these frustrations weren't just mine of you know the city, or like even like things like घर पे अम्मी अभी कहाँ जा रही हो, क्यों जा रही हो, अकेले क्यों जा रही हो, तुम्हें चाय पीने जानी है, what do you mean? So we all shared similar family you know, resistance, and we started talking about it, and we started talking about it at Dhabas, and I started writing about it because that's what I do. I do, you know, share stuff on Instagram from my life, as a lot of us do. Okay, the photo went up, and I think I put up a few narratives, and then there's this friend in Lahore, Sadia Khatri, who also went to a dhaba there and put up a photo. And it's not like women don't go to dhabas, but we were putting up photos of ourselves, right? And Sadia Khatri said, why don't we open a Tumblr? So I was like, "ठीक है," and Sadia Khatri said, if you know no one sends in anything, that's okay. You and I can just keep posting photos, and it'll just be like this quirky Tumblr that we post on. And we open it up for submissions, and then submissions started coming in from women, not just in Pakistan but also in India and Nepal. At that point, we're like, okay, this is not just us. This is something a lot of women think about. I think we kind of just like put it under the carpet. You know, you kind of accept how things are. It's not that we're not thinking about it, but we're not talking about it because we're either actively discouraged from it, or like बहुत आपके ऊपर victim blaming हो जाती है कि तुम्हें पता है माहौल कैसा है, इस तरह की बातें. तो but knowing that more women wanted to contribute and, you know, talk about this experience, we then said, okay, we need to open a Facebook page. And at that point, I just kind of made all these other girls who were hanging out with me at Dhabas, या जो भी like admin बना दिया कि okay girls, अब ये एक project है, हम ये कर रहे हैं, right? So it wasn't like we set out to open Girls at Dhabas. Girls at Dhabas kind of happened and fell into our lap because it was just what was going on with our lives. It's just a collection of people's experiences, either through photographs or through text. And that's something people can get on board with, because it's like अगर कोई और vulnerable हो रहा होता है, एक तो you open up and you listen, and then you also feel like you can share your story. And in terms of like women talking more about abuse or even the Me Too movement, I feel like that is the shift that has happened, is we are all starting to share our stories with each other publicly without apology, and often without like, not without regard, but like in the face of really like horrific consequences and backlash. But we're still doing it because there is power in that, in speaking up and putting yourself out there. There's a reclamation of agency when I walk on the street, but also when I talk about it on social media, because that is also a space that is gendered, और जहाँ पे चीज़ें under the carpet brush की जाती हैं या trolls होते हैं, right? I think we don't necessarily always have a language for these things, but I think we're doing it even when we're very young, right? Like, and I really think puberty is a sort of like marker that you can identify for yourself, or a lot of women can. आपको periods होते हैं, just the attitude shifts in the family, or when body hair starts coming, just the way you're suddenly made aware of how you are a sexual being. Something was like, certainly, you know, I think you're going through a lot of changes when you're a teenager, and your body's going through a lot of changes, and I just didn't have anywhere to direct those sort of experiences or thoughts and frustrations. T2F was a space that really helped, because I started going there and I met all of these wonderful older people, Sabine, Zach, and they just kind of like took us under their wing, you know, not knowing anything, but just like, okay, you're questioning things or want to learn, and just kind of showed us that another way of living was possible. But I was also interested in writing, but घर से उसका इतना कोई support नहीं था. तो T2 से थोड़ा दिमाग खुला, and then I got into college. One of the biggest things I learned at Mount Holyoke and with the women there was that the personal is political, right? So it is our everyday where we will be able to resist perhaps the most meaningfully sometimes, because it's happening all the time, right? And when I came back, I just like I just feel like there was this heightened sense of comparison. It wasn't just Mount Holyoke, it was also, I lived in Nepal for 3 months in 2013, and I was there on my own, and it is a South Asian city, but it's really friendly to women. No place in the world is safe. I have learned that the hard way, but there are certainly places that are more welcoming and conducive to, you know, you at least developing a relationship with the city. And I had experienced that in Nepal, in Kathmandu, and also to an extent at Mount Holyoke. But when I came back to Karachi, it was just like, ye kya ghutan hai? My body felt not comfortable outside. It didn't know how to be outside. There was this fear all the time, and just I had seen a life where I could exist in a different way in Kathmandu, and I wanted that for me in Karachi. रास्ते नहीं पता होते थे यहाँ पे. Kathmandu में I can, like, you know, I could draw a map, but here I couldn't get you home from anywhere in the city because I'm just not familiar, and that's not fair. It has been the women in my life, and therefore, like, it is very much about everyday lives, and I understand that gets like selfish at times, but also like learning to recognize that those everyday things are linked to structural violences. But my feminism is also about class, is about whatever identity politics play a role in that space or society where you are currently existing. जब हम शहर की बात करते हैं, हम ये भी बात करते हैं कि how do we treat lower class people, right? And how do we treat them with hostility? So, for example, a good way to understand this is that my experience of sexual assault has not been on the streets, but I am told, don't go into the streets because that man on the street, meaning that working class man, तुम्हें कुछ कर देगा. तो मैं उससे डरती हूँ, वो मुझसे डरता नहीं है, but वो मुझे प्रोटेक्ट करता है, क्योंकि जब मैं बाहर जाती हूँ, then you know, एक बेनेवलेंट अदराइजेशन होती है और हम दोनों एक दूसरे को एक्सक्लूड करते हैं. तो पब्लिक स्पेस उसके लिए भी सेफ नहीं है और मेरे लिए भी सेफ नहीं है. सो दीज टू आइडेंटिटीज आर वर्किंग टुगेदर टू एक्सक्लूड मल्टीपल आइडेंटिटीज, एंड इट्स रियली इंपॉर्टेंट टू रिकग्नाइज दैट. सो वी कांट जस्ट टॉक अबाउट gender when we're talking about feminism. We have to also talk about class. We also have to talk about sexuality. So I think there are like categories of negativity. एक होता है, सबसे पहला होता है तो इस्लाम में नहीं है तो आप क्यों इस तरह बाहर जाती हैं. दूसरा होता है कि इस्लाम ने तुम्हें इतनी फ्रीडम दी है, अब इसकी क्या ज़रूरत है, why do you need this, right? And the third is just like, I support feminism, but this is going too far. You know, today you're doing this, tomorrow you will be nude on the streets. We get comments like that sometimes कि आज आप लोग ये करें, कल आप लोग नंगे घूम रहे होंगे. On the whole, though, I would say it's been surprisingly supportive. I think the most hate we got was probably when we started putting up posts supporting PTM and when we were supporting Kandil. Sometimes aap bahar hote ho and it can be something small, or it can even be something someone says to you that just really throws you off, and all the hard work you've done of all those days of making yourself comfortable and battling your fears and putting yourself out there, it just comes crashing down, and you really like question whether this is worth it, whether this is going to change anything. Like, I'll be, down the dumps all alone, but then I'll go and meet my siblings or my feminist friends, and they'll remind me why we originally did this. And so you have good people around you who you keep close, who remind you of your politics and your ability to change something as little as it is, even if you're in your own life.